Okay, welcome to the Holistic Nutrition Hub podcast. Today we have Amy on, and she's a registered holistic nutritionist. She is a rep for Thorne and Microbiome Labs as well. She's here today to talk to us about her journey through nutrition and how she became a rep for these supplement companies instead of doing your regular old consulting business. So, hi, thanks for being here.
Hi, Lynn. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, of course. So do you want to just start and jump in with your journey with nutrition?
Absolutely. Going back a few years, I was director of operations for a satellite programming company and not super happy. And my ex-boyfriend's mom was a naturopath. And so I really had a lot of learning and a journey there. And the natural world really excited me. And I decided to go to CSNN and think that everybody in the world should take that course just to learn about themselves and how important food and nutrition is in our diet. So yeah, that's where I started my journey. And I did that in Toronto, and I moved back out west. My sister was living out here and she wasn't doing well. So I came out, she's got cystic fibrosis. So I came out to be with her and kind of changed my life around. And I started working at a health food store and really loved connecting with people, talking about nutrition. I'm super passionate about helping people, just talking about health and wellness. And that kind of led me to doing a little bit of consulting. And that, kind of on my journey, I worked for a couple different supplement companies. And one of the companies didn't meet label claim for their product when they had their raw material tested, and they continued to make the product. And that didn't really sit well with me. So I moved on and I found Thorne. And I did a lot of research over the years and just found professional supplement companies to have much higher standards than retail companies. Not to say that all retail companies are the same, but in my journey, I felt safe taking them. And I was taking Thorne products. I had signed up for my own account as a nutritionist. And I got an email saying that their BC rep was leaving. And I emailed them and said, hey, are you looking for a new rep at this time? And they said, no, they're going to run everything out of the Canadian director in Toronto. And 6 months later, I got an email and said it was too much and got an interview and got the job with Thorne. So
that's amazing.
And that was 12 years ago. And I love being able to have nutrition discussions, health and wellness. The consulting I found a little bit unstable for me. I'm a planner and a little bit of a worrier, which I try not to, but so I found working for a supplement company, I could still talk about what I was passionate about. I could still talk to nutritionists and naturopaths and friends and family, but I also had a little bit more of a steady income. So that really worked well for me.
Do you feel that like being part of the nutrition world in that capacity, working with like probably learning a lot about supplementation and a lot of the science behind it, do you think that's a really beneficial part of that job because you get all of this extra knowledge that you probably wouldn't unless you were doing it on your own time?
Absolutely. And when I first went down to Thorne, it was like mind blowing because I'd never had that. I mean, I'd had training from the other companies that I'd worked for, but to actually go down there and see the manufacturing and learn about the supplement world from the inside out, it was such an amazing experience for me. And I think that, we didn't, I don't know about now, but, years ago when I went to school, we didn't learn anything about supplements. We learned, this nutrient does this, but so I really felt unequipped when I came out to even talk about supplements. So I wanted to learn more, and that's how my journey kind of directed me there. And there's a lot of great resources for nutritionists from probably from all supplement companies, but professionals too, right? A lot of companies do webinars and they'll help guide you through different conditions and help learn and educate you. So definitely it's something that nutritionists should look at, is getting that knowledge from the companies because it's free.
Right. And okay, so we talked a little bit about this before we started recording, but there are the professionals out there who are like, no supplements, let's just do whole food. Do you want to just repeat what you were going to say about?
Yeah. And I believe that nutrition is key, like eat your 10 servings of vegetables a day and eat whole foods. And I mean, that's how I live. But if I remember the statistic, it's, it takes 1 month of healing for like however old you are. So if you're 30, you need 30 months of eating super clean to heal your body. And some people they're not willing to make that commitment. So I feel that supplements can really help speed that healing along, make your patient feel better, improve your practice, improve your relationship. By all means, you can stick to nutrition, but in my personal experience, I have needed supplements to bring my body back into balance.
Yes. So you're okay with taking supplements in order to bring back, a balance within the body, realizing that, I say this a lot to pregnant women when I'm talking to them, and they want their bodies back after pregnancy. Well, it took you 9 months to get there. Imagine if you're really in a state, how long it's going to take your body to get back if you only give the nutrition part. And for me, I think supplements play a huge role in bringing the balance back in. But also, like, what if somebody has like a genetic defect, and so supplements can play a huge role, I think, in that too, in replacing or helping to detox or whatever it is that could be in that as well.
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, I've been on this journey a long time, and I totally agree that whole foods and nutrition is a huge part of it, but it depends on the commitment. And based on my friends and family circle, they are not willing to make that commitment to nutrition 100% of the time. And so if you want the healing and the speed of healing, I personally find that supplements play a big role in that.
Right. Now, what are your thoughts on whole food nutrition supplements versus, say, Thorne? I know that they try and source as like clean as possible and stuff like that. So what's the quality for Thorne like in terms of that, and maybe just touch on the difference between whole food supplements and Thorne supplements?
And you know what, there's definitely different schools of thought. Some people absolutely love the whole food supplements, and like Thorne doesn't make a whole food supplement. They look at the research behind the products, and they source the minerals, etc., as clean as they can. They do the most raw material testing in the industry, and it really opens your eyes to a lot of the differences. So all companies are what they call GMP certified, and that means they use good manufacturing practices.
Okay.
And they get their facilities tested once a year. They have to test the raw materials once a year. They're pretty basic certification, if you want to call it that. And so Thorne chose to do something called TGA certification, which is the Therapeutic Goods of Australia. And that is the most recognized worldwide governing body. And that is things like they have to test every barrel of every batch of raw materials that we receive. And they are quarantined based on which product it is until all the testing is complete. Meaning, if that was not our time of year to test, those products would have gone to market not meeting label claim. That's huge. And every once in a while you see the news and they're like, we tested this multivitamin and it does not contain the ingredients. Well, it might not even because the company is doing something deceptive. They're just not doing enough testing. And so I'm really passionate about educating new naturopaths, new nutritionists about, if you're going to look at supplements, you need to research the companies that you're buying from, because not all companies are created equal. And the raw material testing, we test every barrel of every batch. And to me, that's what makes me feel safe about taking these for my family. The facility gets inspected 4 times a year unannounced. So if you're a basic GMP facility, you can clean up once a year before they come. Whereas, we're inspected 4 times a year unannounced. So you always have to have your ducks in a row, your testing in a row.
Really cool. Okay. So you are consulting for Thorne, but you're also consulting for another company called Microbiome Labs, and that's a new product to Canada, correct?
Yeah, they're working on bringing all their products to Canada. So they've been in the NPN process for a couple of years now. The owner's a microbiologist and feels that, we're kind of at the last stages. And so that's why they hired 3 Canadian reps. And so I found them at a trade show. And basically I have psoriasis, and I was on this journey of how do I heal? Because I know that putting steroid creams on and, the conventional treatments didn't sit well with me. Now, don't get me wrong. I did have to use them for a certain point there. When you're up all night, every night, scratching and bleeding, and you need to use that in the moment. So I found them at a conference, and the girl says to me, well, you should try our probiotic. And I'm like, I've tried probiotics. I've tried Chinese medicine. I've tried it all. But anyway, she gives me this pamphlet, take it back to my hotel, and read about this leaky gut study that gives you a 60% improvement in results after 30 days. And I was like, what? Is this for real? And so it's a really cool story. Karan, the owner, who's a microbiologist, started in the lab testing probiotics. That was his job. Tested, lots and lots and lots of probiotics. Found that over 95% of them did not make it through the stomach acid. And so he's like, what's going on here? And he was very good at his job. He actually had companies saying, can you help us formulate a new product? He's like, okay, well, what are you looking at? And they're like, I want 20 strains and 20 billion or whatever it was. And he says, okay, let's look at the research. Well, I don't have research. I just want to be better than the next guy. And he's like, huh? So he came on his journey and he found the spore-based probiotics. And he was like, wow, these are showing 100% gut survivability as opposed to 95% that don't survive. And so he, did some research, took it to his functional medicine buddy and says, hey, have you heard of these? Have you looked at them? And he's like, probiotics don't work. And so he's like, but this is intriguing. And so he started testing it in his practice and was like, wow, I'm getting phenomenal results. So they took it to a few different companies. Nobody was interested. That's how Microbiome Labs was born. So it's not just another business guy trying to make a better labeled product. They are super passionate about helping people lead healthier lives. And so I tried the product I ordered my 3-month supply because as of right now, that's how we do it. And I noticed a little bit of a difference. And then I ran out and I went to their keynote symposium last fall and ordered my next 3-month supply. And about month 4 or 5, I started to notice a huge difference. And I had 8 bleeding, scabbing patches of skin, and they all started slowly going away. And I only have 1 left. And I followed what they call their TGR protocol. So that's their total gut restoration. And so the probiotic, obviously, it reconditions the gut, it crowds out the bad bacteria. And then the second month you add a prebiotic powder. It's a precision prebiotic. It feeds the keystone strains, Akkermansia, etc. And then the third month you add what they call mega mucosa, and it's a mucosal healing, helps heal those tight junctions. And basically I was like, I need to work for this company because it was so life-changing for me. I wasn't up scratching all night every night. Yeah, it just was really eye-opening that, I don't know how much talk you do about leaky gut or metabolic endotoxemia. And
you talk about, that's something that I've been diving into with my fibromyalgia, is diving into the metabolic side of what can happen, with people with autoimmune conditions, so I've been going down way too many rabbit holes over the last couple weeks, but the connection between high insulin and genetic predispositions for detoxification and all of those things, and how all of that can lead up to these toxins building up in our body. And when we're in school, they often talk about acid versus alkaline, and they don't really talk about the metabolic pathways that cause these leftover things in our body, which can wreak havoc. And so that is the part that I'm kind of diving into and getting really interested in. So if you want to talk about it, have at it, because I think it's an important conversation.
Yeah, I'll definitely touch on it, because that's what like the leaky gut study, right? And And that's one thing with Karan being a microbiologist, they've got 7 clinical studies on their products. They are funding another 14. That's unheard of in this industry, but he's super passionate about the research. And so metabolic endotoxemia is, the fancy name for leaky gut, or the technical name for leaky gut. And basically the outer layer to gram-negative bacteria is LPS, and that's lipopolysaccharide. And as a healthy system would work, that would just be excreted. It's a byproduct, and it would be excreted. The problem is when you have leaky gut, your tight junctions are not so tight anymore, and that LPS gets into circulation. And LPS has been linked to arthritis, Alzheimer's. There was a really interesting podcast I was listening to that basically said they dissected some Alzheimer's brains and found huge amounts of LPS. And so they're like, if you can heal the gut early on in life, you can have an effect on Alzheimer's. And obviously autoimmune, like there's like 20 different conditions that have an LPS component. The difference between insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes, there's a huge LPS component. And so, we all know that the gut is where everything starts, right? Immune system, everything. And so if you focus on that gut health, and if you seal those junctions and have the gut working properly, you can prevent, maybe I can't say that.
You're talking to nutritionists, you're not talking to clients, so it's okay. Guys, right. Take out the words that we're not supposed to use. She's used to talking to naturopaths.
Yeah, you can help so these other conditions don't manifest later.
Exactly. Well, I was having this discussion with my doctor because I just had my blood work done, and this kind of touches on that. It's like, I went to him in February or something, and I was like, hey doc, like I'm struggling, like what's our next step? And he's like, well, we did your blood work last year, I'll get you back in 6 months for blood work. I go and get blood work. My CRP levels are up into something where, like a naturopath would be looking at it going, hey, your CRP levels are up, you're heading towards like autoimmune condition, we need to do something. And then I even had markers for like stage 1 kidney disease, and the doctor's like, yeah, there's no problems there, you're good. And I'm like, so what number do I have to be at to be sick enough that you'll actually think that something's wrong with me? I've got fibromyalgia, my markers are going up every year, yet no, we'll just leave it until there's actually something. Like, come on, guys. So it's, I wrote back to him and I was like, look, I'm not waiting. Like, we're going to try and figure out what's wrong here. But it really has just made me dive right back into everything that I learned at school. Like, what supplements are going to help me, like where can I start? Where can I begin? What's the deepest point that I can go to? And for me, like, I know like I can't survive without supplementation. Like I know the application is off. I know that like I need to be taking B vitamins and omega and vitamin D. I know. So for me, it's like there is no way to get all of that from food when it's actually at that level.
Absolutely. And that's what makes me so passionate about natural medicine, right? You talk to a nutritionist, a naturopath, they want to help you before these major things manifest.
Yeah.
And go back to the consulting as a nutritionist. When I worked at the health food store, I did a little bit of consulting, but the people, people just came in and wanted a little bit of free advice. And that's part of working in a health food store. But the ones that wanted a consult had like 3 different kinds of cancer. And I'm like, you kind of need a naturopath. You're a little bit over my head. And I'm the first person to say, I don't know everything. Mm-hmm. So that's why I found for the incidences that I was looking at consulting, I'm like, I can talk you through the nutrition point, but you really need some more therapeutic advice from a naturopath. So, I mean, Microbiome did a study on acne. Well, it's not quite published yet, but it's like a 40 to 50% reduction in acne lesions. And, they've got a ton of studies underway, and it's like, how long would it take your body to heal itself from nutrition versus adding a supplement? And in 30 days, you're going to, notice a difference. Or, They did a triglyceride study. After 90 days, it worked better. The spore-based probiotics worked better than the drugs. So
wow.
That's where I'm super passionate about helping people feel better sooner.
Yeah, for sure. So in terms of things for practitioners, I talked a little bit about this on a different podcast, but both of these companies offer customer direct ordering, right? So you can make as a practitioner, you can sign up for a wholesale account and then have an affiliate link and make the commission off of it, so that if you're working, with a client, you don't have to send them to, well, for Vancouverites, Body Energy Club, or where else? Health food store or something along those lines, or Costco, where people pick up their crappy vitamins.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that would be the recommendation for the nutritionist. Now, do you want to add anything in there in terms of the practitioner accounts and what you love about them versus maybe things you've seen?
Absolutely. And so both companies, as a nutritionist, you can set up a practitioner account, which I know that some nutritionists weren't aware of that. So that's a big part of my job, right? Hey, you can get an account, you can buy it wholesale, you can give your customers products that actually meet label claim, right? The other thing I want to touch on is vitamin D. And we talk about vitamin D a lot, especially in the state of affairs right now, right? We're all so vitamin D deficient.
Yeah.
One of the examples of quality I'll give you is vitamin D, I think it's B12 and K, are super concentrated in their natural form. And so what happens is the raw material manufacturer buys a truckload. It's the most cost effective. They dilute it and preserve it. Then they sell it to you. You manufacture it into your multi-year liquid. Because you, the manufacturer, didn't put the preservative in, they did it at the raw material level. You don't have to put it on the label. And so that's a huge issue with some people. It could be sodium benzoate, BHT, BHA, lactose. There's huge amounts of lactose in diluted vitamins. And again, it just educates you on looking at the companies that you want to buy for. Look at the professional lines, because those retail lines definitely aren't labeling them. And I can't tell you how many people I've met over the years that have said, I can't take vitamin D, I react to it. And actually, I was on a plane a few years ago to Toronto, and there was a woman next to me, and she's coughing. She's like, I'm sorry, I've had this cough for a month. And it was winter. And I said, oh, do you take vitamin D? She goes, no, I can't, I react to it. I said, oh, have you ever tried a professional brand supplement? She says, no, what's that? And it was interesting that a lot of people are sensitive to the preservatives in it. And so they're missing out on taking that vitamin D. So, that's something that obviously, Thorne, we just have our vitamin D made for us in smaller batches without preservatives. But it really comes back to the quality.
Is that the same with other vitamins too? Like you say vitamin D, but is that the same where they'll get a batch in and then put a preservative in and then they don't have to state it on the label?
If anything is done at the raw material level, they don't have to put it on the label, right? So if the raw material guy puts it in there, you buy that raw material and then you make it into your multi-year liquid. If you didn't put it in there, you don't have to put it on the label. And labeling laws are not what they should be.
So what would you say the top 4 things people should look for in a supplement are, or 5, whatever you can come up with?
Good question. I would say research the companies, right? And I would say look to professional lines, because generally they're making their supplements for naturopaths, nutritionists, chiropractors, pharmacists who ask more questions than the general public, right? So generally professional lines have higher quality. The certifications, ask what certifications they have. Thorne's got TGA, they're NSF certified, which means, a handful of their products they can sell to professional athletes. They have associations with 12 US sports associations. And so they did some testing with the Mayo Clinic and the Olympic athletes, meaning they're free of, I think they test for 700 contaminants, meaning those are clean and pure enough for the Olympic athletes to take, and they're subject to all this drug testing. Magnesium stearate is one that I didn't really touch on yet. And are you familiar with mag stearate?
No, just the magnesium citrate. Citrate?
Yeah. So that's a supplement that you would take. Mag stearate is a lubricant. And so, and that's usually on the label as mag stearate or stearic acid. And so you take your chalky vitamin C powder, you add mag stearate, it's a slippery fat. You can now run your machines 5 times faster than Thorne can. But that fat coats the nutrient.
Right.
You now have to digest that fat before you can absorb your nutrient. And we know that 80% of people coming to see a holistic practitioner have compromised digestion.
Yes.
So Thorne's philosophy is, why put anything in the way of them absorbing their nutrient? Some companies use it, some don't. There is no benefit to the consumer. It is not a good source of magnesium. And that will be listed in the other ingredients as mag stearate or stearic acid.
Okay.
And a lot of companies say, it's not a big deal. Well, if they only use a little bit, and if you've got good digestion, you're right, it probably doesn't matter. But again, all it does is make 5 times more capsules at the end of the day. All it does is make more money for the supplement company. There's no benefit to the consumer. That's another thing that I tell people to look for is mag stearate.
That's a really important piece of information. I didn't know that actually. And you always kind of wonder like, well, what's stearic acid? And you kind of think, oh, well, it must be like similar to like citric acid or some other thing that's not bad. And it's not until somebody tells you these things that you realize what is actually going into them. It's the same with, I found this out during cooking classes, actually, when I was helping out with them, is that sugar, or they use the same kind of buffers, like they can use casein, they can use lactose, they can use bone. And so sugar is actually not vegan. And I didn't know that. And then in wine too, to clarify the wine, they use like casein and bone and all of these things. And I'm like, what about all these people who have allergies, and just don't know that those could be left in their wine and they're drinking them every day, like I think the more natural we get back, it always plays back to the more natural we can be with our bodies and what we put in them, the better off we're going to be, I guess.
Absolutely. The other thing I think is key is finished product testing and stability testing. So Thorne does product testing on all of its products. Everything has to meet 100% potency at expiration. And so finished product and stability testing are again, something to ask for. And on the Microbiome Labs side, they do, I think it's called, they do post-production testing as well, which is very interesting because it's actually not required for probiotics. Kind of crazy. But they feel strongly about it, so they do it. They do, they have every batch tested, like DNA sequenced, to make sure that it meets label claim. And again, not required, but they do. And it's interesting because you could put 10 probiotics in a product, and you could be like, this probiotic does this probiotic does that. And you can advertise that those 10 probiotics do the 10 things that those do individually. But if you put those together, you have no idea if they if they work together, or do they cannibalize. So if they don't do post-production testing, how do they know that those 10 strains get along? Both companies do post-production testing, which again, I think is huge. And why is it not required for other probiotics?
Well, we know, if you have done your research a little bit on supplements, we know that the quality isn't all there when it comes to all the brands and different things. And it really does take time to learn about the products and what resonates with you in terms of whole foods, which company you're going to go with. I like Thorne in terms of what is possible for nutritionists, though, because I really like hopping on the US website and going and looking at the guides that they have available. Are all of the supplements that are in those guides available in Canada, or are they just on the, oh man, why is the US always, is it because the US is more lenient? Like, where are those products?
So
Canada.
Health Canada, yes, Health Canada doesn't let us bring some products in. Now, with that said, there's a couple different ways to order with Thorne. So we stock, a good number of products in our Canadian warehouse. And so in the Lower Mainland, for example, if you order at 9 o'clock this morning, there's a good chance you'll get your product tomorrow or the next day. They've got a great warehouse, and so that part of it is really awesome. You can also, set up on our website our online dispensary. So you can give your patient a code, they can order their products, and they get an average of, it's over 40% commission. Basically, the difference between wholesale and retail you can make for your practice. I've heard that that's leaps and bounds above a lot of other companies. So that's available to you. Now, if there's a US product, a specialized product that we don't have here, most of them are available to be brought in for a personal use or a 3-month supply. So those orders you can send to the US, and then, the shipping is based on weight. So we do keep that in mind. And then, it'll come to you a week or two, depending on the border. And so you do have access to them. It's not quite as easy, but you do have access to them. So that's how Thorne works. Microbiome Labs, we're still at the 3-month supply because we don't have a warehouse here yet. And so you can order wholesale, have it shipped to you. You can also give your patients what they call a patient direct code. So each of your patients can go on and order their 3-month supply, again, get shipped directly to them, and then you get 35% commission, which is still really good compared to industry standards. What most people start with Microbiome Labs is the spore-based probiotic, the prebiotic, and the mega mucosa. That's what they call their total gut restoration. That's what I started with. They've also got like an IgG product, which binds and neutralizes toxins. They came out with a wheat rescue product with Dr. Tom O'Brien, who is like, gluten causes inflammation in everyone. Anybody can order at wholesale with their nutritionist, and you can buy it wholesale for yourself to save you money from going to the store. You can use them with your patients. It's totally up to you how you want to run your business, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's an important topic to be sharing, because we've talked about this in other podcasts before, but I don't think people realize how much of a markup there is on supplements when they're going to the retail store. So, they can kind of pick and choose how much they want to charge their clients. If they want to make the commission off of it at the full amount, they can, but they can also mark it down too, which is kind of a nice way of giving your clients a little bit of a break too, if they have a financial issue or not as well.
Totally. And even for yourself, even just for you to be able to afford them, right? Like,
yeah,
I think it's anything under $20 is basically doubled. That's the markup. And then it's a little bit less for the more expensive products. So that's how Thorne does it.
Nice. I used to use some of Thorne's product. I'm trying to remember which ones it was. I don't know. It's so long ago now. I'm using Swiss brands. And Swiss brands, like Swiss regulations are far more strict over here than Canada. I think it's like Switzerland is the top in the world, and then Canada is pretty much right underneath them. So I don't know. I found some random doctors' pills here. They're really hard. Supplements are really hard to find here. It's not a big, you can't get melatonin off the shelf here. You go to the pharmacy and you're like, can I get some melatonin? They're like, no, here are some essential oils to help you sleep. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm in. Yeah.
That's awesome. Hey, I'm all about trying as natural as I can be first. And then, sometimes we need to amp things up, but no, I'd love to try the essential stuff first.
Well, I know. And it's such a difference between going from Canada, where it's like pill push, pill push, pill push, pill push and we have the lovely oil nutritionist coming in and, kind of supplementing that area. And I use them myself. It was just really nice to go in and then just be like, yeah, I have this preparation for you to and it's I'm thinking of this nasal spray I got, and it had oregano and a whole bunch of other stuff, and you spray it up your nose, and it's you get a kick to the face, you're like, okay, and you're like, is this even good for me? And they're like, yeah, it's exactly what you need. I'm like, cool. Wow. I love it. It's really amazing. That's awesome. Everybody should take a little Swiss tour and get the whole experience. Anyways,
maybe I'll come for a visit one day.
I'm literally thinking about just like having like a whole group of nutritionists just come here so that we can go farm hopping and like go to the market on Saturday. Like honestly, all of it's like within a 20-minute drive. We could do it like a winery tour where we're all just like driving in cars going to these amazing places where they make food from scratch. And yeah,
Yeah,
that
very
would be
cool.
amazing.
Yeah.
Um,
I will mention that I do work for another company as well, KBMO. I'll just kind of touch on them
yes.
because again, it's another um, another avenue for a nutritionist. So KBMO does food sensitivity testing, and they test IgG 1 to 4 and C3D complement. And so this is a test that you can do at home. It's a blood spot test. So, like a diabetic would prick your finger and you put the 5 drops of blood and then you mail it away. And what sets it apart is that they test 2 inflammatory pathways. So it cuts out a lot of the false positives and gives you a much more accurate result. And so does your patient want to cut out 8 foods or 30? And so personally, when I did the test, it was huge for me because I had done, a traditional one a couple years ago and it gave me 32 foods to avoid. And I tried. I noticed a little bit of a difference, but when I did this test, it gave me, I think it was 8 foods. It gave me like apples and almonds. And I was like, huh.
Yeah.
But as a sales rep being on the road, those are good, healthy, quick snacks. So I tend to have eaten them a lot. And I basically cut out those 8 foods. And within 2 weeks, I wasn't bloated every night and I felt so much better. It comes with an app and a meal plan. So as a nutritionist, it can be a hands-off type of test because I know that there is, some people don't feel comfortable or, in regulations kind of thing. So it's a test that you could give your clients. They can take it home. They can do it. They mail it away and then they will get I'm pointing because my phone is here. They can get their app and a meal plan right on their phone. So it's a really great tool, again, that is available to them. Yeah. So and I can give you the links to all of these. I can give you my email.
I'll put them in the post show notes for sure so everybody can find them. I wanted to ask you a bit about the meal plan that comes with that blood test though. Did you like the meal plan? Did you use it personally?
You know what? I used it for ideas and I'll bring it up and kind of, I don't know how well you'll be able to see it, but I did definitely use it for ideas and it's really nice. So this is the meal plan, this is the test. This is my test, you can all see. And so it really breaks it down for you. And then when you click on the meal plan, I'll just read you a couple of the things. So breakfast, it's suggesting plain coconut milk, yogurt, a pear with cinnamon. Your snack is celery and sunflower seed butter. Your lunch is a lettuce wrap with turkey, mushrooms, shredded cabbage, and hummus. Afternoon snack, pomegranate. Dinner is shrimp with zucchini noodles, tomato sauce, broccoli, and mushrooms. So I found it fairly simple, and I did use it to give me ideas. And I mean, I do eat a lot of, fruits and vegetables anyways, but for the average person, and that was just a 1-day example, it gives you a 7-day meal plan. A nutritionist might find this simple, but I think for the patient, I think this is a great tool because on their phone, everybody loves an app. Yeah. They can feel empowered. They can get ideas, and fairly simple ideas, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a really important point is like you mentioned that you thought that the test was relatively expensive. What was the price of that again, wholesale?
So the wholesale price is $200 US. Mm-hmm. And the price in the US is actually $275. And I said, with the dollar right now, that's not ideal. And so they're doing it at $200 US for the Canadian market. It is a little bit more expensive than other tests on the market. But here's the thing. Do you want your patients to spend $150, $200 for something that's going to give them 30 foods that gives them a bunch of false positives and they have to do so much more work? It's kind of a personal choice. I would rather pay a little bit more and have a more accurate test.
Well, and here's the other thing too, is like I'm all for, I've teamed up with Metabolic Balance in the sense that they do the same thing. It's based off of blood values. And so for me, $200 doesn't sound like a bad deal because they're going to be paying you for a weekly meal plan, which is going to be $75 usually anyways, roughly. Plus, they're going to need to take the test, which could be anywhere from 150 to 300. And like you said, they get this wide range. And this just helps you really narrow down like the few foods that they really need to cut out in order to feel a lot better. And so even if they were to pay you for a few meal plans after that, it's like an allergy test plus like a month of meal plans. I mean, it's really not that much more expensive in my opinion, or could equal out to the same amount.
Totally. And you're getting much more accurate information, and the app. People love the app in the meal plan. And I haven't looked at other, food sensitivity tests. This one's called the FIT test, the food inflammation test, because inflammation, right? It tests the 2 inflammatory pathways, which make it more accurate. I haven't heard anyone say, oh, so-and-so has a meal plan and an app too. I haven't heard that. So I think that might be a pretty unique thing with this test. And there's a huge value to that, right?
Yeah, I think the more that we start to run our businesses online, the more that these things are going to become available to us in terms of giving the information.
Totally. And you don't have to go to the lab. A lot of people like that too, right? They can just do the test at home, pop it in the mail, and away you go.
Yeah.
I actually did that for my vitamin D as well. I don't know if we talked about that before, but
no. Yeah, because now it's a paid thing. You have to pay for your vitamin D testing.
Yeah, if anyone wants to do a vitamin D test on their own, there's a company called, I think it's Grassroots Health. And you can basically sign up to be part of their study, and they send you, same thing, the little card where you put 5 drops of blood, and they'll send you what your vitamin D levels are. And I like to do that.
What was it free, or did you have to pay for it?
No, I think I want to say it was like $50 or $60, which I think is the same as what I paid at the lab.
Yeah.
So it's the same as the lab, and you can do it yourself, and you're part of this vitamin D study. But there's a lot of people talking about vitamin D right now, and how you should be taking it with vitamin K, not just high dosing D. And there's a lot going on in the media right now about vitamin D. So I tell people, get your vitamin D tested.
Yeah, I think it's a huge thing. I don't think people pay enough attention to how much vitamin D they could be lacking. Do you mind sharing if you were deficient? I'm curious.
If I'm deficient, or how much I would take?
Yeah, were you deficient? I'm just curious. I'll cut it out if you don't want it in there, but.
Do you know what? I was borderline. Okay. I can't remember. I haven't done it in a while. And then one time I was getting sick, and I had high dose vitamin D. Mm-hmm. And I went for a test, and I was quite high. I was like, okay, I can't remember what it was. So mine fluctuates. And I can tell you that when I'm good, Thorne has a liquid DK drops, and that's what I normally take. And when I'm consistent of taking it, I'm good. And when I'm not consistent about taking it, I can be borderline low.
Right.
So, and I will personally high dose vitamin D for a couple days if I'm coming down with something. And that was the one time that I was quite high. But it doesn't, I wasn't off the chart, and it doesn't stay that high, right? So, yeah. But yeah, I personally feel like I like to high dose for just short 3 days, high dose, just to kind of kick the bugs.
Yeah. Well, and you hear it a lot. Like, I mean, you hear people being like, oh, just take the 1,000 per day. And then there's people out there that are like dumping 5 to 10 a day. And that's what we should be doing. So do you want to maybe just verify that? I'm curious of that now too.
So Tom Maltaire, who is a phenomenal person, he's a nutritionist out of Washington. He has done a ton of research, and his recommendation is 1,000 IUs per 25 pounds of body weight. He's the one who wrote the Whole Life Nutrition Cookbook. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Phenomenal cookbook, phenomenal person. You can, if you want to follow Tom, he's got a lot of research. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that was his recommendation. So, you're just over 100 pounds, you should take 5,000 a day. And I can't remember if that was summer versus winter. But again, try that recommendation and then get tested, because everybody's body is different. I might absorb it, you might not, or vice versa. So right. I do. And I don't recommend doing high dose D without K, right? You need that to kind of direct. So yeah, I like I said, I'll high dose straight D short term, but then I'll fall back to my DK.
Amazing. So much information. I've learned so much just like literally on this call with you in the last hour. Like I was like, I know a lot, but I clearly have some learning to do.
I think we all do. I still get asked questions about supplements that I don't know the answer to. And, I don't feel I have to know all the answers, but I've got, a couple of great teams, great companies, medical affairs teams that can answer the tough questions. So.
And that's also like something we were talking about off the call was, how working for a company like this, supports the nutrition aspect of it, and you get to have the conversations that you enjoy having, but you also get to work with an amazing team that helps back you up. And so for the people who are not like solopreneurs or want to go off and venture in the land of uncertainty, as we all feel that it is and can be, I think that's an important point. So, that's obviously one of the reasons why you've stayed with Thorne for 12 years is because of that community, right?
Absolutely. And it's like you say, I'm super passionate about helping people and health and wellness. And I can have my passionate talks and still make a steady income.
For sure. And I think that's the important thing. Like we've said, you and I on other conversations, is like just letting people know that they can do that, and that it doesn't make them any less of a nutritionist. You are still who you are. You still went to school. You're still doing something that you love and are passionate about. And that's, really what is defining the industry now, is these people who are supporting these specific areas. And that's what makes it kind of special.
Absolutely. And the fact that we can support nutritionists that do consulting, this can support them. It can support their passion for helping people, and it can help support them financially too. So it's a win-win.
It is a win-win. Yeah. On that note, do you have anything that you want to add about these three lovely things that you talked to us about, or anything that we missed?
Quality versus quantity. So when you talk about probiotics, I kind of touched on it a little bit, but you really don't need 20 billion. You actually need quality probiotics that are going to make it through the stomach acid. Quantity is not always better. So I do get asked that question a lot. And the other question I get is spore versus soil-based probiotics, because there's a lot of confusion in the industry, and soil can contain spore-based probiotics, but that's not to say that soil-based probiotics contain spores. And so they are different. And some companies are kind of mixing the two when they talk about them, and they're not really interchangeable. So if you're looking for a spore-based probiotic, Microbiome Labs spent 7 years and $500,000 researching how to shock them into the spore form until they get through the stomach acid and can do their job where they need to. So soil and spore-based are not the same. And I do get that question a lot too. So.
And where are these like spore-based probiotics coming from?
They're actually stored in a university in England.
Oh.
And so they store them there, and then when they need more raw material, they, put them into the manufacturing process. And what's really cool is they actually found spore. Sorry, I cut you off. They actually found spore-based probiotics that were like 200 million years old, fossilized in I can't remember. Anyways, but that was really cool. And the other thing is you can actually bake with them. They tested baking with them for like 10 minutes up to 350 degrees or something like that, and they actually survived. And so that's actually I forgot about this one, but that's another question I get, is refrigerated probiotics.
I was going to ask you that actually when you were talking about it before, is do they need to be refrigerated?
They do not, because they've been shocked into their spore form. So another question is, why do probiotics have to be kept in the fridge? And there's a lot of different theories about this, but on one of the first webinars of Karan's I watched, he's like, if this has to stay in the fridge and it won't survive on the counter at whatever temperature your house is, how's it going to survive when it's a heck of a lot warmer in here? and everybody was like, I never really thought about that. And so it's interesting, different schools of thought, but again, I go back to the research. Thorne is super focused on research. Microbiome Labs is super focused on research, and that's kind of where I go back to when it comes to supplements.
Perfect. Well, I feel like we could talk about this for hours, which we already have off of here. And and I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I'm thinking that I'm going to put all the show notes in below where they can find you for more information on these products, and also if they have any dying questions about certain supplementation, that I can forward them to you. And then, yeah, I guess that's it. But maybe we'll have to have you back on for like an educational piece, or we do a webinar or something. So if people are listening to this and want to know more about certain things, maybe we can have you do a chat about
Sure.
it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
Cool.
Always open to help fellow nutritionists out. So
Excellent. Well, again, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. I learned a lot. So hopefully everybody else will also learn more.
awesome. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you for having me.